IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. And to kick off the new year, what better than take you to a very special place with our guest Priyanka from the blog maproute.in. So sit back and enjoy as we take you to one of the biggest religious congregations in the world, the Kumbh Mela. Priyanka, thank you so much for being a part of the Musafir Stories and welcome to the podcast.
Hi Priyanka, welcome to the Musafir Stories.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. It's our pleasure, and we're always looking to have different people to offer us different perspectives about traveling and traveling to different places. Given that India is so diverse in this regards, right? So we're really glad to have you. And before we get into the details, right, of the destination and the topic we want to discuss, why don't you go ahead give us a little bit of a background about your travel story?
I basically started traveling way back in 2009, and it was like a pure solo travel trips because I think one of the reasons that I started traveling was because I just wanted to be on my own. I just went on an almost impromptu, not entirely, because it was one of my first trips. South India from Mumbai. I'm basically based in Mumbai. I went in a bus trip to South India, Bangalore, Mysore, Goa. And that's how my solo traveling started.
It's wonderful that you have it figured out, and we look forward to your blogs about a number of different travels that you have done. But today we are here to discuss something very special about a very grand event, the Kumbh Mela, or the Ardh Kumbh Mela specifically, right? The one that's coming up in Allahabad. We thought it might be a great way to kind of inform our listeners also about this wonderful event that happens. Pretty much one of the biggest gatherings, religious gatherings in the world, where over 100 million people descend upon the place where this event happens. That's the topic of discussion today, and we wanted to kick it off by getting into some of the background and history about this, the Kumbh Mela, right? Give us a brief background about this, Priyanka.
This is like the mythological story of the Kumbh Mela. What they say is that at some point the Devas and the Asuras, in English we would call them demigods or demons.
Right.
They basically got into a fight, and there was no way to kind of sort it, how to sort this thing. And then what transpired was they got like a lot of gods involved, and they also went to Shiva and all, and they got him involved. Like what happened is they basically took a huge mountain, which we call Mount Meru, which is like considered very sacred and really huge.
Okay.
And then they put it in the ocean, which is like the ocean of the world. And they took this huge snake, which is, it's Vasuki. I'm not entirely sure, but that snake is also a really historical, and I think our mythology is so colorful. It's like amazing. So basically, they had to churn this ocean because they wanted the pot of nectar, because everyone wanted to become immortal.
Right.
So they tied this Vasuki to the Mount Meru, and they started, like the Devas would pull from one end and the Asuras will pull from the other end.
Right.
So it would become like a churning pot. Right. And so the Mount Meru will churn the ocean. And when it started churning, like a lot of things came out. At one point, there was a lot of poison which came out. So they actually had to bring Shiva down. So they got Shiva, and they made him drink all the poison, because otherwise the poison would overflow into the world and it would destroy everything. A lot of things came out of the ocean, one after the other. And one of the things that came out in the midst of things was a pot of nectar. And the Devas didn't want the Asuras to have this nectar, because if they had it, it will make them immortal. So what they did was they kind of came up with this ploy, and they requested Vishnu, who's considered a god, and he came down in a female form, and he seduced a lot of the asuras and stuff. And in midst of all of that, the pot of nectar was taken away far from the asuras. So when the pot of nectar was taken away, what the legend says is that a few drops of it fell in like 4 places, and these 4 places is where the Kumbh Mela is held. So basically these 4 places are considered like really auspicious places. So even when the Kumbh Mela is not there, these 4 places are still considered fairly auspicious.
Sure.
We are talking about Haridwar, Allahabad or Prayag. That region is called Prayag. And now there's also some talk of changing the name of Allahabad into Prayagraj. So those two, and a little bit to the south of India is, it's not really to the south. It's in the middle of India is Nashik and Ujjain.
Right.
Ujjain falls in Madhya Pradesh, which is like central India, while Trimbakeshwar is in Maharashtra. It's quite close to Mumbai. And Haridwar and Allahabad are both in the north.
Yeah, and just going back a little bit to the etymology also, right? The name, I think Kumbh Mela, I think Kumbh was the pot of nectar that you were referring to, right? That was churned out of the ocean. That's what it's named after as well, right?
Yeah, it is the pot of nectar, but the thing is, Kumbh is like that pot is considered very auspicious in a lot of other occasions. Like for example, when we have like we take a new home or something, then one of the first rituals that is done is you take a kumbh and you fill it with coconut and some leaves and all, and you take it into the house. Like one girl will basically take it inside the house, she will place it in a specific place. So my point is that the kumbh is a very auspicious. Maybe it has come from that kumbh, but in general that kumbh also signifies this other kumbh, which is for all religious stuff, you always have a kumbh. You will always have this pot with a coconut in it with those leaves in it. So the Kumbh by itself is very, very auspicious for any religious kind of a puja or anything that's happening.
Right.
But what is very clear is that this is definitely like a place where, and this event has been happening for thousands and thousands of years. Right. And like this is a place where it's like a confluence, of all the various religious diversity that happens within the country, and it just comes down and meets at this point.
Absolutely.
Majorly within Hinduism, but it actually also includes Sikh people who do participate in it.
Right. Yes, that's very true, and that's why we thought it's definitely worthy of being a topic of the podcast. Even though we covered destinations primarily, but we thought this event in itself was really significant to a community, and it's also one of a kind, right? As we mentioned at the beginning as well, it's a conference of over 100 million people at one point at that place, right? Whenever this happens, and in terms of the frequency that this happens, can you give us a little bit of a background as to when this happens as well, Priyanka?
So basically, there are these 4 places where the Kumbh Mela happens. So in each place, there is one main Kumbh Mela, which is called the Purna Kumbh Mela, full Kumbh Mela. Happens every 12 years. I mean, it would seem that because there are 4 places in every 12 years, so every 3 years in one place it should happen. But that's not how it works. What happens is Haridwar and Allahabad, they have the Kumbh Mela happening every 3 years, like the full Kumbh Mela in Allahabad, and then the one in Haridwar will happen at a distance of 3 years.
Right.
But then the one that happens in Nashik and Ujjain, like they happen together or they happen at the distance of 1 year.
Okay.
So it's not separated so equally.
Yeah, it's not a regular frequency of that sort, right?
Yeah, it also makes sense because like this is all on the basis of the almanacs and tithis, right? Your lunar calendar. So then they probably have some calculation going on as to when it happens. And then between the two full, like every 12 years, there is one full Kumbh Mela in one place. Between that, after 6 years, there is one Ardha Kumbh Mela.
Right.
So the one that's happening in Allahabad right now is like the Ardha Kumbh Mela.
Because the one in 2019, right?
Yeah, because 2013 they had a Purna Kumbh Mela, and then after that in 6 years, that's in 2019, they'll have the Ardha Kumbh Mela. Also, an important thing to know is this: after every 144 years, because that's 12 into 12. After every 144 years, they have this Mahakumbh, like that's like super big.
Right.
So that happened in 2013 in Allahabad only. So that one was the one where over 100 million people came in, and that's like an insane level of Kumbh. Because I think it's something like, okay, even if you miss the smaller Kumbhs, you won't want to miss the bigger Kumbh.
Right. Yeah. And 140 years is a big deal.
Oh, it's insane. It's like once in a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And perhaps not even that for some of us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And tell us about your experiences a little bit. Now that we have set up the context pretty well. Tell us a little about your experiences as to when you got to visit both the Kumbh Melas, and which of these have you had a chance to visit?
So, in 2013, when that huge one was happening, I was so eager to go, but
Right.
I basically didn't go because, so before we talk about going to Kumbh Mela specifically, we should, I want to mention that, see, travelers who are listening to this podcast, like if they visited any of these major religious places of India, if you've been to Varanasi or such, then you will have an idea of what this kind of event will be like. The thing is, at that time in 2013, I had not experienced all of these places. So I was very hesitant to just randomly land up at that Mahakumbh. So unfortunately, I couldn't go. But the thing is, by the time like the next Kumbh came, that was in 2015, there was the Kumbh in Trimbakeshwar. So by the time I had been to Haridwar and I had been to Varanasi on my own as a solo traveler. And my visit to Varanasi was insane. Like it was one of my first visits to like a religious place. And it's insane because see, usually what happens, we go to these religious places as a family, right? So then mostly it's the adults, like the older folks, they just take care of everything and there are set rituals we have to follow. So you just go in that flow. But then when you go as a traveler, all of a sudden that whole place is open for you to explore. You are not following your set rituals. You're not really doing things from the perspective from your faith and all. Like faith and all is there, but you're also looking to explore, just experience the place in a deeper way. So
Sure.
that Varanasi trip that happened, that was like a really big eye-opener. And then, so by the time I went to my Kumbh in 2015, I was already prepared for a lot of things. I had my fill of, those pandas, they call them in Hindi or Gujarati.
Right.
Like these people, they're a little bit like touts. They'll want to do puja and all for you, but they'll kind of keep asking for money and all. They're pushing you here, there, and do many things within the religious framework. So it's kind of really scary, especially if you're like a solo person. And also as a woman, right? Because a lot of these places are very male oriented. Like, for example, in Varanasi, there was this whole line in front of the temple. And most of them are men. The women are always standing at the side of their husband or their father or something. But if you're going as a solo woman, you're just standing there, you're really in the midst of all men. And sometimes they may not keep a distance. And also I have to keep telling them, please keep your distance. Like,
Sure.
so all such various things end up happening. So especially as a solo woman going into a religious event, you have to be prepared. So now coming to the Kumbh Mela, when I went, the 2015 one, which I went for, I was very wary about these things because I had already experienced it and I knew it was so difficult for me. So I deliberately didn't choose the. So in the Kumbh Mela, there are these important days, like big days, are very auspicious. So like the masses, the crowd just multiplies like insane on those days. So I didn't choose those days. I went on the non-Shahi Snan days. These are called Shahi Snan. Shahi means royal and Snan means bath. So these are like royal bath days.
Right.
So I didn't go on those days. I went on the normal days, and thankfully, like it was actually, I think I also missed like, these Shahi Snan days. Some of them are more important than others also. So by the time I had landed up in the Kumbh, most of these days were kind of over. So I had gone in for me it was very nice because there was not so much crowd. A lot of the ghats were a little bit empty.
How about the accommodation and everything, Priyanka? Did you take care of it before going there?
So, I had done a Google search and I found some of these camps. I just called them and asked them to book something for me. The thing is, because it was a non-Shahi Snan day and it was not the peak season, there was no pressure on me to really book and give an advance and all. I just said, keep one bed for me. So this was basically a female dormitory. And so what happens with accommodations, especially again in these religious places, is that a lot of these ashrams and all are there. The problem is, especially if you're a solo traveler, whether you're a guy or a girl, they will not give accommodation to a solo person, even if they have it free. So the dormitories within these ashrams and all tend to be mixed. It's usually for families and also I don't know whether I can go and all. So I didn't opt for those. So then what you should opt for, especially if you're solo, is you go for these camps where a lot of these foreign women are also there. So that's usually fairly safe. And I'll also get these other foreign women and all who are usually solo. And sometimes Indian women are also there, but typically they run on the basis of foreigners who end up coming as a solo person. Otherwise, for Indians, mostly these are like family occasions also. Right. So they become like a different set of people. So where they might stay, I may not be able to stay. So it's very important that, especially as a solo person, you should think through your accommodations. And guys, especially like guys can be totally chilled over here because see, so many humans are there.
Right.
So there are a lot of these mandaps, like big tents are created by a lot of paths. Like a lot of these gurus and a lot of paths will come there, right? And they'll have their own setups. So a lot of them create these huge tents. And in the tents, these people will just go and they'll sleep there. Like literally on the ground, they may have a small bed sheet or something. You just roll it out and take a little, the clothes or whatever is in a little bag. They put it as a pillow and the shoes are nearby. That they just stay like that. And the government or even the ashrams and all, they will have bathrooms and also they use those facilities however they get. So especially guys, like they can totally rough it out and do whatever. Like I have some friends who are guys and they really wanted to experience the Kumbh very, very properly. So they literally went like these local people, with minimum clothing and just even minimum stuff, like not even carrying anything much. They just actually stayed like these people, and that's totally okay for them. But I wouldn't opt for it because as a woman we are just a lot more careful and. Yeah.
So maybe in your own words, can you explain how the scene was when you got to the Kumbh Mela the first day?
It's really amazing because you can literally just surely make out the kind of people coming in and they're completely different. Like some of them are hardcore yogis, right? I mean, these are sadhus and not so much like Naga Babas have been hyped up a lot, but then they usually stay in the enclosure. Because I think they don't like all the attention. So they don't really come out and roam around too much. Some of them do, but very less.
Sorry to interject, but I just want to ask one question, just to give our listener a little bit of a background about these Naga Babas or the Naga Sadhus, right? Can you speak a little bit to that, like who these people are, where they come down from, and describe to us also, like they're very unique in that way, right?
My information on this is also quite limited, but I'll tell you whatever I know. See, what happens at the Kumbh Mela is that as I said earlier also, from all the paths of Hinduism and Sikhism and maybe even other small religions that I don't even know, but all of them just come there. They set up their camps because they all want to experience this.
Right.
So what it includes is all of these akhadas. Like in Hinduism, there are a lot of akhadas which are like sects, maybe you can say, or they're just groups who follow a path of Hinduism. And one of them is your Naga Babas and all, who are the ones who basically will be nude and they'll rub vibhuti is like sacred ash.
Right.
They rub it all over, on their body. They have dreadlocks and stuff. The other thing is these Naga Baba sect, they are very closed. Like they are not so open to public. And I personally know this because even when I went to Varanasi, I wanted to see a few of them because especially over there are these agoris. So agoris are also similar because they are also these swamis with dreadlocks and fully ash covered ones, but they are very closed. And I had a friend who had actually got some contact with agoris and had been to the ashram and all also, but she was also telling me that it's a very closed sect. And probably also, because the outsiders are probably coming with a very wrong intentions because they see them as naked, they just get excited, but that's not it, right? Like they have their own thing that they are following and we need to maintain our respect and stuff.
Right, because I think even if you see the ideology that they have, that they are more connected to the afterworld than this current world.
Nature,
and they believe more in staying close to God. So at that time, I think if a person comes around with a camera, and I've seen a lot of people like asking them to pose for pictures and all that, so maybe that doesn't go that well with them. So maybe that's the reason they prefer to stay a little secluded from the rest of the crowd.
Even otherwise, I think only on important occasions like this is when they descend down, right? I don't think you see them a lot on other days, right? Usually for events like the Kumbh Mela, that's when they descend down in numbers. Otherwise, they're very limited also in terms of accessibility.
Yeah, their ashrams and all, they are very closed and they come out in the Shahi Snan. So what happens during Shahi Snan is that even for that particular night where the dip is supposed to happen or day, whatever, the hours are also decided by the almanac, right? What is the auspicious hour and what not. So according to the hours, like these sadhus and all, also they have their own internal order and seniority and whatever it is. So as per that order, they will come down to take the Shahi Snan dip. That itself is like a fairly... it's like an occasion because like in my next Kumbh Mela, I went to Ujjain, right? So the Ujjain one, I actually went for the Shahi Snan days because I felt confident enough and I was very excited also to experience the Shahi Snan. And this was my second Kumbh Mela, so I thought I could like it. It would be great, and it was amazing because at Shahi Snan night the environment just changes. I mean, it is so electric.
Yep.
Like on before, because when I went to Trimbakeshwar, things were a lot more emptier, and I chose that time, right, to go on an empty time where things are not too chaotic for me.
Sure.
But the Ujjain one was like amazing because I went on these peak days. There were like the 2 or 3 Shahi Snans coming together, and that's when I was there in the middle of it. So one of the Shahi Snan nights, like it was a full night of dipping. The whole night I just stayed up and I was roaming around and stuff. So I was part of this, like I was kind of standing as the spectator to this whole procession that comes down. You just stand somewhere where the main ghat is there, and all of these like outsiders won't be allowed in that ghat in that time because all of these sects have priority, because obviously like these are like major, seekers and all, and they'll be doing the sadhana. They want to make use of this occasion, so they are given those slots and everything. So then there's a whole procession that happens. Like hundreds of people are just standing at the side, like me watching. And then there's so one of the procession, and that was the Naga Baba procession, and the whole bunch of them came. Some, like most of us were standing respectfully, but like some youngsters and all, they'll kind of start acting smart and doing some funny stuff. Then these Naga Babas are super fierce. Like this one guy, he took a stick and was going to beat him.
Okay.
Because he was acting smart, right? He just jumped into the way, and I don't know, maybe he was trying to click a photo, but this guy just took a stick and he was going to hit him. This mischievous fellow ran off. But it's quite something. Like the whole environment, it gets really charged, and it's really amazing. And the other thing, like I don't know, a lot of people know, but apart from Naga Babas, there's also a woman sect who is very similar.
Okay.
But they don't come out in the nude at all, because obviously, right, the social situation doesn't allow it. But they only nude within their campus, but when they come out, they wear some clothes and come out. I was very surprised to know about this, but like I read about it and came to know about these things. It's quite amazing because like, there is so much talk on the outside about, like, especially in urban educated circles, about India being so patriarchal and so regressive in certain ways with regards to women. But if you go to this Kumbh Mela, I mean, it's amazing because within the format of religion, you can do so many things. Like I'm solo right over there. So even then at 3 a.m, I can go and have a dip in the river alone, because the environment is so many people that it's just so okay. Like I don't think any of us will face any problem there. And even that Shahi Snan night, I just decided to stay awake and just be part of it. So there's nothing of like unsafe. I mean, it's amazing. Like you can just go. Everyone is respecting. Everyone realizes, that it's just very different environment. And even like people are taking dips and all, like some of us, okay, I have proper clothes and all. I'll plan from before that I'm going to take a dip. But a lot of the locals come and they just have their own 1 or 2 pairs. And, they'll just take a dip and somewhere they are changing. And it's just a very nice environment. Like no hooliganism, no nothing of that sort happens. Like it's really beautiful.
Sure, and I think it's very impressive also, right? Given the scale at which it happens, that it's relatively safe for women is what you're saying by experience. Kudos to everybody who is a part of that, as well as the governments who help in organizing this, right? As well as the local bodies and the police forces that are there to keep the calm and everything. So I think it's hats off to them as well. But as you said, overall, I think it's the environment and the atmosphere that it is, which is really that of faith, that of I think, devotion and everything. So that's why that also comes across. I'm sure you noticed that too. And just touching back upon your mention about the Shahi Snan, and I think the reason that this is so significant during all the days of the Kumbh is because it is believed that once you do a holy dip or the Shahi Snan, like they call it, it is believed that you wash yourself of all the sins you've done, as well as it helps in attaining moksha, right? That's the significance of it.
Yeah, definitely. Like that is why people come. Like it's considered a lot more auspicious than other days. Otherwise, going to Ganga, taking a dip is also a very pure, like considered very sacred by everyone in Hinduism and all. But definitely, like Mela days are even more. I mean, people are always encouraged to make use of that opportunity. The other thing, however, it's what happens is, I think, more than just like people do want to make use of that opportunity to, get their sins washed away and all that stuff. But I think more than that, what really pulls them is that whole environment, because you just meet so many people over there who are like into their own paths. spiritual paths. They are doing their sadhanas, whatever it may be. Like there are also like people coming in from like these modern yoga schools and stuff. And then there are these very more ancient kind of traditions like the Nagas and all, which is much more ancient. So that whole mix of it is something really amazing because like everyone's there for that one reason. I mean, I'm sure there are some other people who are just coming to see and all. I'm sure there is a certain percent of those, but most of the people you will find, they're so, you're dropping all your differences and all. You're just there for that one purpose. And it's really amazing because if you see at the end, those different people that are coming, they're very different. Like these may be people from smaller towns versus bigger cities, or there's like a yoga, like a vinyasa yoga from Mysore versus some completely different tradition from north. So there are a lot of differences. And like, for example, I met, in Trimbakeshwar, for example, I was standing in the temple queue, and the group that we had was so eclectic. Like there was this one lady who was like this Canadian who had come down because she followed some guru in Bangalore, and so she was with that group, but she was my roomie in the dorm, so I was with her. And I was coming from another yoga school, like I follow another yoga school in the south again, so I had that background. And I'm actually not even a Hindu, I'm a Jain. Okay. So that's another difference. Then there was this other guy who had basically just jumped into the line, and we were quite bugged with him initially, but then that got forgotten in the process. So this guy was somebody from Faridabad in Madhya Pradesh again, and he was an astrologer, like a traditional astrologer person, like a Brahmin. So that was a very different background. Then there were another 2 or 3 people who were standing as they were a family, and they were from some village or something. So we didn't interact much, but we all became like a group, and it was amazing because it was so eclectic and all our understandings were so different, but at the end we would still come together for the same thing.
Sure. I think there's that feeling of oneness, right? As you seem to be saying, even though there's so many confluence of so many diverse sects and people and ideologies, there is this feeling of oneness as you become a part of this whole. Really, it's a phenomenon more than an event, right? I think that's what is so significant about it. And just to touch upon, you did mention a little bit about say your living arrangements, right? You lived in a dormitory, but I've also seen these huge literally tent cities, right, around the main area. What are these all about, Priyanka?
So basically these camps, they are called camps, so they have a lot of different tiers of kind of accommodation you can get. And so there are also very, very expensive kind of tents which are available, where you get a tent and that tent also has a small bathroom in it and all. And then of course it kind of, there are smaller tents which like 4 people or so. Then there are smaller full dormitories like 6 or 8 beds. So people can choose where they want to stay, but especially if you're going for the more expensive one, then I think they would get full and all because they are less in number.
I think that's something to keep in mind. And also touching upon the different kind of activities that happen there, right? Obviously, you mentioned that the Shahi Snan is done on specific days, and that is one of the more significant of the activities. But otherwise, right, while you're part of the Kumbh, what are the different kinds of activities that go on, say, day to day or during the course of the day, right? What are the things that you come across?
So there's a lot going on because, like I said, there's just so many people. These camps are there, like a lot of these gurus and all will come down and set their entire camp. So all those camps keep having something or the other. Like that guru himself, if he's coming down there, then he will have a discourse. Like I think the government or the organization, whoever organizes it, they maintain some discourses going on in a common mandap. So, for example, Swami Ramdev is someone who's usually taking a shibir or something. So for 7 days, every day in the morning, he will be doing his yogas. Then following him, somebody else will come and talk. So there are these common mandaps which are there where you can always just go and something is going on. Typically, because there's so much of diversity, you may not want to randomly sit somewhere because it may not be so relevant for you. So you would want to figure out what interests you and you want to find those kind of places and those activities. But that's one thing, like, as of now, I have not found any one place where you can get a list of things because I think it's too dynamic, too diverse, and I don't think as of now there's any central body which is planned. Like where you can just Google out like how all the activities and pick one and choose. But you keep searching on Google. That usually helps because these individual guru organizations, they will post what they are doing on their organization in their mandap, and then the common mandapams you just have to go and inquire when you reach there. And if you want to particularly like listen to one guru or something, then you'll have to book in advance also according to it. But in general, like that's one thing that can be done. The other thing that can be done is like obviously you want to take a dip also. So you have to figure that out when you're planning to take a dip, and then
Right.
and then go for any of the sessions. So the other thing that happens is you want to visit the temple, and usually all of these places are these huge temples. Like Ujjain has Omkareshwar Shiva temple, then Trimbakeshwar in Nashik there is Trimbakeshwar Shiva temple, and I'm sure in Allahabad and Haridwar also there are major temples. So those temples, obviously there is a huge line there. I mean that line is like 4 hours, 5 hours long. So that's a huge time consuming thing. Then you have to decide which temple you want to go to, because usually in these places there are 4-5 huge temples which will have these long lines. So you decide what you want to do, which ones you want to go to. And one thing about temples and also the dips actually is that if you maintain your timing properly, then you can seriously cut down the time spent in lines. Because for example, temples always go at that time. At the moment it opens, 5:36, whatever it opens, go at that time. That's the best time, because the crowd is so much lesser, and max you may have to stand for like 40 minutes. Like Trimbakeshwar, I went in the morning at 5:30 or 6, I reached there, then I had to stand for 45 minutes. But anytime, even 15 minutes or 20 minutes later, the line just keeps growing and growing and growing. And the other thing is, if you go in a time when there's a little less crowd, no, you get a chance to sit there for a bit. Otherwise, if the line is very long, they're pretty much just pushing you out. And not in a bad way also, because they don't have an option, right? Like when there are thousands of people in line, what do? You can't just allow everyone to sit. The other thing is to keep in mind that like you could just skip the main things. Like for example, in the Trimbakeshwar temple also, you can't sit inside the temple, but the outside courtyard is completely empty. Like you can just sit there for how much ever time you want. Especially people who want to do yoga, you want to do meditation or something. There are always these non-obvious routes. So you can't get inside the main temple for sure. That has only one route. But if you want to just go into courtyard or something, there are these other gates and all where you can just go inside. So you have to be a little smart that way. But it also depends on people's faith and all, because in Hinduism, like they do consider that one main gate as the most auspicious. But like I personally don't think too much about these things. So I would just go into another gate and sit at the corner and do my meditation or whatever, and I'll be very happy. And also the ghats, right? Because there are some really major ghats, and a lot of people end up spending a lot of time just for that one main ghat. But instead of that, if you just go to another ghat which is fairly empty, you have a much better time, because it's here, you can take your time, you can take your dip, be on your own, get some solitude. I mean, so I think people should don't just rush in to do the main things. Just figure out what you want to do, go at your own pace and still get your own space. It's not necessary that you have to be overwhelmed by that crowd. That's the main thing. The other thing that can be done there is like all these akhadas and all are there. So apart from the major discourses and all, you can actually meet those people. That's also amazing. Like there are all these babas and all who are doing pot. So like those are like big attractions. Yeah, I know.
Those are the pictures you see, right? Always on social media and everywhere. I think that's what it's made all about. But of course, there's a lot of other things as you mentioned. But yeah, go on.
Such a small part of it.
Yeah.
So, but then you could also go and have pot with them. A lot of them are actually very welcoming. But more than that, there are these akhadas and all where you might genuinely meet some really amazing people. You can sit and talk with them. And the most amazing thing, what I found is that these people, they're covered in ash. They have dreadlocks and stuff, but they speak such good English. Like I cannot believe it. The first few times I spoke with them and they are speaking such good English, and I'm like, oh my God, where are you from? and then they are saying that these akhadas, like these traditional Hindu akhadas, they actually have branches in Germany and Europe and all those things. So I was very amazed. So it's such a novel place. Like I think that's one of the best things after the dips and all, which are also amazing. The dips and the temple visit and all is super. But after that, and just meeting these people, looking at diversity and just making your own connections, that's really amazing. And also like because I was solo, or maybe even if you're not solo, you just end up making these friends and stuff. And somehow, like at least for me, because I have this whole background of yoga and all, and I mean the conversations I was having was very interesting, because I typically in the normal walk of life, I don't find people who are so into spirituality and stuff, so I can't have so many conversations with them. But like here, somehow I think the environment is also such that we all start talking all these little deeper things, which is kind of interesting. And I kind of, I ask them about their path, how they do some things.
Wonderful. And yeah, thank you for setting this up so well with so much context. And for somebody looking to go there, I think it gives like a good wholesome feeling, right? For some, like if you look at it from the outside, for some of us, it might just be about the Shahi Snan. For some of us, as you said, it might just be about the pot-smoking babas, and for some of us it might just be about religious procession, but as you said, there's so much more to this, and that's why even we wanted to have somebody who has experienced Kumbh in more than one place as well, to kind of give us a flavor of what to expect, especially given that the Kumbh in Prayagraj or Allahabad, as you mentioned, is coming up in Jan of 2019. So it goes on from Jan of 2019 till March, you said,
March
Priyanka?
4th. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, for somebody who is looking to plan an event to the upcoming Kumbh Mela, I think you've set up the context really well without overloading people with information. Obviously, people will have to do their own research in terms of how they want to go about it based on their preferences. But this is, I think, a very good way of giving a little flavor of the different things that go on during this whole event, the whole phenomena that Kumbh Mela is. Any final thoughts about traveling as a solo female traveler to such events, and especially the Kumbh Mela,
I
Priyanka?
think the normal precautions which solo women travelers will take should be taken. Yeah, nothing major. Just be a little careful where you're going, and don't just randomly enter places. Just use a bit of common sense, and I don't know what to say, because I don't want to make people too cautious, right? Because otherwise you just miss out on a lot of things. Because in these events, a lot of random connections happen and a lot of things work. But at the same time, there are also situations where people ask your number and then they give you missed calls and random things like that. So if you just follow your instinct, I think we can make it out. Because when even if a Baba or someone randomly asks you your number, you don't give it, right? Those basic common sense things you need to follow. Just because somebody is wearing saffron doesn't mean anything.
Absolutely. I think that's some very good advice. And last but not the least, when you're going there with a group, as a part of a group, make sure you stick together, I guess, right? Because I think that's what Kumbh Mela has been made popular by our Bollywood movies, right? Lost in Kumbh
Lost
Mela.
and found, yeah. They meet each other after 12 years or so. But the good thing is that the management has improved a lot, I think. The police there are a lot of police people stationed everywhere. There's a lot of cleaning staff and a lot of organization in place. In the last 2 years, like Ujjain and Trimbakeshwar, they have had a zero lost. No people were lost.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure like the whole organization about it and everything has improved a lot more, but it's just Bollywood's way of kind of making things bigger than they are, right? It just reminds me, I think I was reminded of, what was it? I think Johnny Lever in Soldier or some movie like that. He kept saying that Kumbh Mele mein bichhad gaya mera bhai, and he keeps looking for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of such movies. It's like a done
Sure.
story, like Kumbh Mela mein kho gaye. But I think it was a genuine thing earlier on those days, because, in the Trimbakeshwar that I went, the government was so happily announcing that no one was lost. So I was like, that means people were being lost before.
Yeah, it's true. And even in terms of the amount of money that the governments are spending now, right, to have the organization in place and the infrastructure in place is also pretty impressive. I was recently reading that for the one upcoming Kumbh Mela in Allahabad, right, in Prayagraj, I think it was over 2,000 crores or so that's being spent on the infrastructure and setting up of all the facilities for all the pilgrims and the devotees that are going to come down to this mega event, right, of sorts. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great preview of the upcoming Kumbh Mela as well. And thank you so much for running us by this in a very detailed fashion and giving us all of these different insights into all the things one can expect at the Kumbh. But before letting you go, why don't you tell us and our listeners how we can keep in touch with your work, Priyanka, in terms of your blogs and other places also where you post your stories?
So my blog is at maproute.in. That's maproute.in. And apart from that, I'm on Twitter at Priyanka Writing. And also on Instagram as at Priyanka Writing. So if you want quick updates about what I'm traveling, where I'm traveling right away, then Instagram and Twitter is probably where you can find me. And apart from that, there's the blog. And the other thing is I might be coming with a podcast on my blog soon. So yeah, you can also listen to that.
Yes, wonderful. So we will be adding links to all of this in our show notes. So all the listeners can go ahead and check out Priyanka's blog and her work. And welcome to the podcasting community as well.
Yeah. we'll keep
Thanks.
all of our listeners updated too. Whenever you go live, do let us know, Priyanka, and we'll be more than happy to share your podcast so that more people can listen to it as well. But we'd like to thank you a ton for taking time out and sharing this wonderful experience you had in this mega confluence of people from all from different sects of life, right? More than anything, and as you rightly put it, even though there's so much diversity in the type of people that come down, right, descend upon for this event, there's that feeling of oneness at the end, and I think that's something you'll only get to experience while you're there. So I urge everybody who's listening to this, if you are interested in the Kumbh Mela, it is a very good opportunity to go and explore this phenomena. And once again, thank you so much, Priyanka, for taking us through this wonderful journey with you.
Thank you, Priyanka, and giving us a beautiful insight into this massive mammoth event.
Thanks a lot.
You.
And thanks for the opportunity also.
Thank you.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Audioboom, Savan, Pocket Casts, Castbox, Stitcher, or any other podcasting app available on iOS or Android. Please do leave us a review on iTunes. It goes a long way in the show's discoverability. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com or visit our website at www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of each episode. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.